We're the Vinyl Verdict. I'm Jacob.
I'm Michael.
And today we're reviewing Badfinger's Wish You Were Here album, the final of the original lineup and my personal favorite, so I'll get that out of the way right now. And this was released in November 1974 and not released for long. Tragedies with the band, which were entering kind of full force at this time. So it wasn't on the shelves for long, but we got a copy on vinyl. And it was recorded pretty quickly off the back of their last two albums. Badfinger had switched from Apple Records to Warner Brothers, recorded their first album there back to back, and then immediately went out and toured, and had just wrapped up their last US tour, April 5th of 1974. And then basically within a week they were at Caribou Ranch in Colorado recording this Wish You Were Here album through April and May, and then a little bit in Air Studios in June and July of that year. This album got a lot of production. They used Chris Thomas again on that piece, and I think it's known for just the production, the unique production of the band. Really had writing from every member. Although it's short, it's only 36 minutes long or so, really has a lot of representation and a lot of pop material and kind of longer medleys on it as well. It hit number 148 on the US charts. Again, it was only really available for 6 weeks or so, so it was pulled pretty quickly after it was released because of some legal disputes. At the time it's being recorded, Tom and Joey specifically are really on to what's happening with the management issues, and that's bogging down a lot of their enthusiasm, to say the least. And so that's really apparent in the songwriting and just the demeanor. And Tom actually had said he quit once during the recording of the album. Stan Pauly is also in the recording sessions and at Caribou Ranch, which is pretty surreal. So there's just a lot of palpable tension and emotions, I think, running high on the album.
There was great emotion in this album. There was a tremendous amount of emotion. As soon as you heard Just a Chance, obviously now, tied in with what was happening, but just the emotion in his voice and the power of the guitars, and now it's obvious with the dynamics of where it was coming from, but just without even knowing that, it was so powerful.
And depending on when you bought this in November, because I'm not sure, this might have been your third Badfinger album in 12 months, which is pretty crazy. Yeah. And the last one that you have to get on the main lineup.
The volume of the albums as they were released was just fine. I was having a great time, and just awareness that something had changed commercially, but no idea that it's permanent, no idea it's just a fan in the street, that there's problems within the band, no idea of any of this stuff that's so common knowledge today.
Alright, so album kicks off with Just a Chance. This is the hit, if there's one on the album, and Warner Brothers did have this lined up as being the single, and I mean, you can just hear Pete wrote this as a hit. Constant crescendos. I mean, the song just is like, every verse of it is a crescendo. It feels like they're just breaking all the structure of songwriting and the verse, chorus, repetition that they had on other songs. And the riff even is just like, for two chords, the way he's picking it out and kind of pivoting between those two is like he's trying to escape from one to the other really quick. His vocal line is really high. I think this is one of the higher melodies Pete Ham ever sings. Really nice deep drums during a lot of it as well. And then that breakdown in the middle, like just a minute and a half in before Joey does his ripping solo. We think it's Joey, it's credited to him, but could also be Pete, I saw in one mention. And then ending it with a really nice harmony at the end and the organ and all of that. Average White Band was doing a lot of the horns and everything on the album. And what I didn't realize until I was reading more about it, they were doing it live with them in some of the preparation and everything. It wasn't an overdub, but they were actually at Caribou playing it live, and I think the song preserves a lot of that vitality when you listen to it.
It's a crashing way to open an album, and right away it's different kind of territory. It's everything you loved about Badfinger. Obviously now today we've heard Pete's demo, and you can get a good idea what Badfinger could do. And they did with guitars. The drumming is superb, and the harmonies as they come in, as you said, at the end with the last extra high one from Tommy. I mean, just you weren't disappointed in any way. It may have been Warner Brothers, not Apple anymore, but something new was in the works. They weren't giving up. They weren't finished. So it was so exciting to hear it. And you would never know what's coming with it because you're so happy to hear the album. So after that unbelievable opening, we come to another great track, and really there is no filler on this album. You're So Fine, the first Mike Gibbons composition, which he didn't sing on, as in many of his other ones, although he would on the second one, which is still to come. Country rockish kind of feel to it, but it's so beautiful the way the harmonies build by the second repetition of the chorus, and of course, a great example of Joey Mullen singing with Pete Ham, which he himself said that Joey spoke of really enjoying it. And let's not forget the slide solo that's in the middle. Mike kind of came through, and he fills a nice spot on the album here.
I'm sure there are other examples, but this is the most obvious one of Pete and Joey harmonizing, and I think it's because they're kind of equal volumes, so you can really pay attention to either one, and there's like that duality in the melody that's not necessarily like just one supporting the other. I love the picking in the middle eight or after the middle eight. Yes. They do. That's really beautiful. Yes. And I noticed this on Wish You Were Here actually. In a lot of the arrangements, they do a solo, and then after the solo, they go back to the chorus or middle eight, and then they have harmonies, like descending harmonies. They're just doing the oohs and ahs. That's on almost every song on the album actually, in that exact same structure. So I think I'll point that out in some other places, but they do that here to great effect. And then there was I guess there was a harmonica that Pete recorded also that was wiped, which is something in general I noticed about this album that I find really interesting. When the alternate takes came out, for the most part, it was things that were removed. So they actually, as much as it sounds like this album is so produced, they also went away from maybe overproducing it, and where there were extra synths, and in this case harmonica and guitar parts, they actually stripped a lot of it out in the final version. So that was a revelation.
That is a beautiful guitar part that brings the chorus back into the verse when it just breaks, and it's the lead guitar.
Track 3, we have Joey now coming up for Gotta Get Out of Here. Not the most joyous song on the album, not that any of them are, but obviously this is written about Badfinger. He's not pulling any punches. And for this to be kind of, the first time you hear from him on the album, which in general, the last two songs actually were probably the two most positive songs, and you get right into, the dungeon of just, his misery on Caribou Ranch. And I think it's a really interesting idea for a song, though, because whereas a lot of other songs on this album it sounds like 100 guitars, right? It's like an army of guitars. This is very clearly just one acoustic guitar. It doesn't sound to me double track, triple, anything like that. One guitar part, but there's this wall of sound on top of it, which is a bunch of organ and synth and maybe harmonica and little things like that happening. And so he both sounds, really isolated and lonely, but there's like kind of this warm atmosphere around him. So it's a very unique production. And then it kind of builds towards the end. You get a little bit of that bass drum and tambourine and everything coming in. Really plays into the lyrics that he wrote, and it's almost nauseating listening to it because it does become so cyclical, the same chords, the same melody, and it works very well with the theme of the song of just feeling lost and stuck and all of that. And then when it releases, it's almost unexpected. So yeah, great contribution.
It's funny because I recall playing this for someone and trying to, loving to play any Badfinger songs I learned, and repetitive was the reaction I got to this. But he set the tone and set the mood, and it was a unique sound. The fourth track, No One Knows. I guess it was going to be, unbeknownst to me, one of the last examples of what they now call the power pop, patented by these guys, obviously. Just a wonderful melodic. I don't think it's repetitive or corny. I mean, lyrically, maybe not as strong as the music or anything, but it all worked for me. The Japanese girls, I believe that they had singing in the middle. I'm not sure that enhanced it really, because the guitars are so superb of Badfinger in the middle break. It wasn't Baby Blue by a long shot, but it entertained us and had a punch and a power to it.
In a way, it's bigger than Baby Blue. I mean, like, again, it's just the crescendos, like just a chance. And it opens with this huge sound. Everything is just, the drums and everything, it's just constant, fanfare type of songwriting. I've never heard songs that are this explosive constantly. And I think he was trying to bring it to the next place and write these big open chords and kind of hit on something. But yeah, maybe the theme and the actual lyrical content of it was always maybe slightly, he wasn't writing as personal, and I know he even vowed, I think after Baby Blue, right, not to ever put someone's name in it, which with Dennis, he didn't put Blair's name right in the song for that reason. Right. So I think for the same, No One Knows, and a lot of it in the album, although it feels emotional, he's not actually being direct in a lot of the lyrics. The drums also are produced in a way that they're almost mechanical and just how precise. This is before any of the technology exists to quantize them, but it feels like, they're just perfectly between different toms and the different tones that you actually hear and the pitch when he's switching them. Yeah, that solo, it's pretty interesting that it's a double-tracked solo, but it's perfectly kind of harmonized throughout. There's not too many examples. We've heard Song for a Lost Friend and a couple other songs did that, slowed down at the end. But for that to be the main solo in this song, which I believe is Pete double-tracked with himself doing that, pretty unique style of playing.
It's great, yeah.
And then backing harmonies after the solo where they do the descending oohs and ahs again. There it is again. And then the strings come in, so it kind of, they have this final flourish in a lot of these songs.
Tremendous.
My favorite part in it, which is very short, but is the way, again, it ends with that same intro where the song almost, it's like he closes the book back up. And even though it is such a happy song, it's so uplifting, but those final menacing chords make it seem like there's some kind of hidden meaning in it to end it in such a dark way. Next song we get into, we got back-to-back Pete Ham written compositions here. We get into Dennis, which, people always talk about the two medleys on the album. On the second side, I think Pete wrote his own medley. I mean, these are three very distinct parts of the song.
Good point.
They never repeat. They're really three distinct sections.
Yes.
First part, it kind of continues that No One Knows left us on that uneven footing, and it sort of continues that.
It's almost ominous the way Dennis starts, and then when you start listening to it, and just with lyrically higher hills to climbing all the time and all that. I mean, this is it. You're being led inside.
People vote this as one of the top Badfinger songs. To me, this is the one on the album. I don't think it's the catchiest. I think it can be hard to listen to, but where I would give it points, it's definitely the most vulnerable and the most direct that Pete is on any of the songs. If you think about Just a Chance and No One Knows, kind of cryptic pop songs, great to listen to, toe tappers, so to speak, but not something you would discuss or analyze endlessly. But Dennis has a lot of depth to it, and you get some sense of Pete's personality in it. And again, that supportive, don't worry kind of mentality right from the beginning. Get into the other sections, I was amazed how loud the piano was mixed here, because again, most of the songs are pretty guitar driven, and it gives the album a different sound for this one section. The final thing I'd say, that change from the second to the third sections, I think it's pretty genius how it slows down. I'm sure there's not great record keeping about the album. That struck me as the kind of thing that they probably spent disproportionate, days and days trying to get that perfect. And it's really extended. I mean, this one goes to 5 minutes and 15 seconds. That's basically the same as the final medley of Meanwhile Back at the Ranch is also 5.5 minutes. So it's a long song, and the extended version is even like
longer.
A minute beyond that. What a way to end a side. There's a reason they picked this as a pretty powerful experience.
Just the chord structure of I guess you'd call it the second, maybe the second of the songs, when it's just going down in that minor. The emotion, though, that comes through these was overwhelming, and that they all shared in common.
Well, we flip it over, and we get to the first official medley on the album, which is In the Meantime, Some Other Time. The first track written by Mike Gibbons, the second one by Joey Mullen. And now we're getting into why this is my favorite Badfinger album, because this is where we were saying, we didn't love the Japanese vocals or kind of speaking over the No One Knows solo, which was Ann O'Dell, who Chris Thomas brought in. Man, do I love what she did here, which was this long dissonant chord in the intro, and kind of the brass and just the warming up, and just how, that's unsettling. And you're unsettled for a reason, because it is like very dramatic what you're about to witness. The foreshadowing is fully delivered. Some of Pete's best guitar playing, awesome piano stuff. This was written like in the studio, I guess, that Mike Gibbons just started doing these chords. My favorite Mike Gibbons song. He really delivered, and to choose this one to sing on, yeah, that's a tough, and I love the way his voice sounds on it. I would not trade any other member for Badfinger singing this song. I think he does such a good job of. And I know he said he was pretty self-conscious about it. He sounds slightly apathetic and uncomfortable, which goes with the theme of the song. And then you get the guitar that has all this emotion, and the strings which bring all the emotion for a voice that has this like lack of confidence, right? So I think that's a great contrast. 1 minute in, we have a guitar solo. What is that? It's 1 minute. It's like instant, and the guitar is constantly filling in everything. You're just right in there, breaking all the rules of structure that a power pop song is supposed to have.
It's a dream for a Badfinger lover, because the guitar's all over it, all over the song. And then eventually we'll get to the other song that's in there, which is also a kick.
I know Mike Gibbons liked harder rock music, and even harder than that. I feel like he was writing and trying to push the band in that direction. And then you get into that, I guess, I don't know, is that a middle eight? I don't know what to call it.
It's not a middle eight.
Yeah, it's like, it's not a chorus.
No, it comes out of nowhere, lugubrious, or almost like, and in the heat of your emotion.
Yeah, because and it repeats twice.
That was very eerie. That used to
a middle 16
go
or
through
something.
Me like no other music ever did.
And I think that's what makes the song so emotional, those timing shifts. Because then when it speeds back up too, those timing shifts are really hard to get right. The piano each time, right, it's like the brass will fill it in, and then you get like this one pause. Most of those spotlights Pete just adds this amazing, like, these bends and vibrato where he's just taking his sweet time. And I think that's like pretty amazing in a song that is pushing and driving, and there's all this stuff going on, and you could be all over the place and hitting 100 notes in a time. But he's like really emphasizing every note and just careful and just like it's never gonna end each time he has one of those breaks.
Yeah.
Some other time Joey's song does just come out of nowhere.
Comes out of nowhere. It comes out of kind of the din 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 din, and all of a sudden it's a little more melodic even, and all of a sudden it's a Joey Mullins song in the middle of the song. It's a complete song. It's an unbelievable song. Beautiful harmony and energy in it. And but if you listen to it lyrically, who could not be affected and touched in a relationship saying, I could remember some other time. I think it embellished and lifted up the medley, one handing off to the other.
And the genius of all the songs to combine on the whole album that you'd have In the Meantime and Some Other Time, which are thematically, there's this sense of time and all of that, very different perspectives on it. Totally agree. I think it's one of the best melodies Joey ever wrote. Perfectly in his range too. I think it's lower than some of the other melodies he wrote. He goes low in certain parts.
I think they say low song or something.
Yeah. Really,
I love it.
Haunting kind of the way he does that. Just the way it wraps up, right? And what a good way to do the medleys, not just sticking the songs together. They go back to that riff again, and they harmonize on it a little bit higher. I don't think it's modulated. I think they just play a harmony on top of it. You're finally comfortable. The song, begins in the most ominous way, and then it's just the curtain goes back, and it's Pete in the most eerie way, again throwing you off.
Yes.
Just when you thought things were okay or whatever, and just the vibrato on the way he's playing that final riff, even if it's just 3 or 4 notes on the guitar, has so much feeling and narrative to it. On the alternate version in 2018, he tried, I was reading about it and heard it, he was trying different versions of it, and I heard he tried backwards guitar. There's a version where he's doing like 2 different guitar parts. It seems like a lot of the other fills, as genius as they are, came pretty naturally. And it seems like he was maybe really pushing himself to think of the right way to close the song with that final piece that connects all of it. And I think he chose the perfect thing.
Oh, so yeah, it's a tremendous switch when we switch to the Joey song, and all of a sudden we've heard it and been lifted up, and there's that sound again, and there's that guitar again, and the closing is that song bracketing the Joey song, and that makes it so complete when Pete fills it in at the end like that. And it's really part of what was stunning at the time is that they were doing a new kind of great Badfinger music. They were going from where they had been, which was great heights, to I thought even greater heights. We go to another great ballad, Joey Mullins' song Love Time. Beautifully written, it's completely original, and Tom's harmony, of course, always wonderful, and the lead in the middle is really great. I love the guitar in the middle, but just that he came up with a melody like this is part of his tremendous growth as a songwriter, and contributions to Badfinger, and anything less is just revisionist, and he was critical.
Feels to me a lot like a Sweet Tuesday Morning style song that he wrote on acoustic, and you have Pete again filling in a lot of the little guitar parts and adding those pieces. It's more sped up. There's more of a band effort behind it. There's some harmonies you mentioned in the chorus, although they're pretty quiet. So again, it feels a little bit more like that corner of Joey on the album where he's doing his own thing a little bit. And the solo's nice. I guess that's another example of double guitar solo, because at the end Pete adds a harmony on top of his own solo, similar to No One Knows. So he's really experimenting with that.
That's right.
And then after the solo, backing harmonies come in, so the theme continues. My only issue with it, it's less than 2.5 minutes. It's a really short song, so it's hard to really get that familiar with it. It's kind of, it comes and goes as soon as you get to know it a little bit. And then the ending there, I think, is also kind of the No One Knows thing, where the last time he says harder now, it just ends in a really ominous way again for a song that was pretty positive, I would say, for the most part.
That's an interesting point.
But a lot of these songs end in really dramatic, flourishes that kind of catch you off guard on this album.
The trust was maybe, which anybody needs in any relationship, was maybe broken slightly and about to break more, and
less symbolically even, I would say. I think everything on here sounds like they were trying to make it a single, which is not how a lot of their other albums ever sounded.
No.
There's one member of the band we haven't really heard from, other than a couple harmonies and bass playing here and there, and that's right. Tom Evans, and he finally, King of the Load, here it is. Almost didn't make the album, both in terms of, it's one of the last songs we hear before the final medley, and it was the last one written. That's why there's no alternate version in the 2018 remaster. Primarily that weird organ guitar thing, or synth, and kind of another thing that sounds like guitar because it's sliding, but it also sounds like synth. Really weird instrumentation. No clear guitar until the solo, which is just a beautiful solo. Really leveraging the melody in that solo that Pete Ham wrote, but taking it higher and higher and really pushing it into places that no one could go vocally, but he can melodically get there. And then you end with, those backing harmonies, which very Ivy-ish, and Tom kind of humming as he goes up and ends it with a little bit of uncertainty again. All these songs end with this uncertainty of an organ note and some cymbal kind of riding.
It's got a sound to match the sounds on the rest of the album. Tommy, his voice, which is always great. It's evocative of some of the Ivy's period of just that, he's a no fixed a boat, hey fisherman. I don't know, just that guy. It's that voice. However, the playing around it is 1970 is powerful. I wouldn't even say it's 1974. I don't think it's aged a whit. It seemed like a little break in the record, like a little anomaly. It had the emotion in it, but in a weird way. It was just Tommy's song.
It really does have the emotion in it. When it's written about a roadie and stuff, it's a pretty emotional chorus and everything. Yeah. Again, this was their third album in 12 or whatever. It's like the third time they've gone into the studio in 12 months. No wonder he doesn't have that much material. It's not, and with everything going on, it's like, it's not shocking. So then we get to the final track, and that is the medley, Meanwhile Back at the Ranch, Pete Ham's contribution, and Should I Smoke, Joey Mullen. Pete opens it up with another crescendo right away. I mean, all of his songs are just like explosive right at the beginning. He's not going to wait to get your attention. Both the guitar and the voice is produced in a pretty unique way, even for this album. The guitar, I know it sounds, Chris Thomas is on the record saying, he wanted to make it sound like 6 or 8 guitars or whatever, but there's also like a crunch to it that's really, like, there's like some bassy kind of crunch funk thing going on to it, and his vocals are a little bit more distant than they've been on the album and kind of compressed in a way that it's maybe a little hard to recognize that it's him. He's also pushing his register up like he was with Just a Chance. Very specific picking on the guitar in both the intro and then arpeggiating some of that B chord that he does. In You're So Fine, we got that nice harmony with Joey and Pete. Here we get a little bit of call and response between Joey and Pete, which is equally rare.
That's good. That's true.
You Never Stayed the Same, and
really
getting
like
that really distinct voice, which is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And I love going into the first solo, which I know Pete wrote very intentionally. You can hear the vocal masking and I think Chris Thomas asked him to do this, but he's actually singing it or humming it underneath the exact same notes he's playing. You can really hear his emotion in the choruses, I think, similar to Just a Chance, that these lyrics mean something to him.
The heaviest emotion possible.
And that it is, that he's straining to hit some of those notes. Yeah. It is, structurally, it's a complete repeat before and after the solo, which is pretty weird. It's not different lyrics that he wrote. I think it shows the time constraint that they were working under. But it's a bit of a fragment, right? Similar to, like, Abby wrote, like, this song on its own, it feels a little bit unfinished, maybe, if it just ended there. But then in the context of the medley, it's obviously one of the coolest, 2-3 minutes.
And actually, like the Mike Gittins track we were just talking about, in the meantime, getting a little ahead, but when the Should I Smoke song ends, you're returned in the descending riff of the Meanwhile Back at the Ranch. You're back, and so we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Well, Meanwhile Back at the Ranch had all the emotion of Just a Chance in it, and you knew it. You knew it was in there, and the music was very powerful. It was just a rhapsody in rock. I mean, it was unbelievable.
It's kind of the cryptic songwriting that he's like Song for a Lost Friend too, and where he kind of just titles a song something that is not in the lyrics. He was really the only member to do that.
That's true.
So Should I Smoke, again, Joey's second time, just pops up when you don't expect it for the medley to kick off. It's not like some big transition that he gets. I like the shift to the quieter section. One of the biggest unknowns on Badfinger is, why is there a version of Tom Evans singing this? There really is speculation that he maybe wrote that and it was going to be a medley of all 3 of them. And for whatever reason, maybe when he left during these sessions, Joey ended up singing that part.
That is superbly melodic.
It sounds like Tom Evans' melody And Chris Thomas, even, there's a snippet with him where he's listening to the playback, and he said that more recently, and he says, yeah, it's weird, why would Tom Evans sing this if he wasn't the one who wrote it? So not sure what happened there, but imagine hearing a version with all three members closing out. I mean, that's like the end for the Beatles, to get all three of them vocally contributing. That would have been pretty special to hear. And then just doing a crazy, really nice ending solo. If you think about it, most of the guitar playing, most of the solo spotlights on the album were Pete Ham. But the two that Joey plays are the opening Just a Chance and the closing Some Other Time. So it's pretty cool that he opens and closes the album and just does this perfect climb to end all of it. Just leaves me crestfallen that this is really the only Mullen-Ham song that was ever written. It took until the final song on the final album to get a Pete Ham, Joey Mullen song, and it's this good. Just, wish there was more.
And anybody that ever saw Badfinger perform live would well remember today the extraordinary interplay between Joey's guitar and Pete's guitar, and the way there was a certain area where they crossed over, and specifically the double guitars they played in harmony one with the other. Wish You Were Here, there was an element of it from the cover picture alone, with them as kind of sailors, kind of looking kind of tired and run down. And there was that element to them. They had been touring and touring and touring, and you saw some of that on the Midnight Special, where this was the harder. You didn't know any of the dynamics that were going on, but this was a harder Badfinger. You knew that they had almost aged a little bit. The sound was harder. The songs were even edgier and more filled with emotion, and that's what Wish You Were Here will always be to me. From the front cover, where they were just they look like where's Badfinger? Where's the beautiful picture of them or something? And they're just these hardened guys without even long hair or anything, just with these sailor hats on or something. That shook you when you saw that. And the whole album was like that, gritty, and it was the same guys, and it was a new kind of music, but it was they were going through something emotionally, and there was a tiredness and a weariness, I should say, to whatever they were dealing with.
Yeah, the album was kind of finished in July. The final versions are locked in July. In September, they go out on tour, and Pete left for about 2 weeks. They didn't know it was going to be 2 weeks. Bob Jackson comes in, and he has a list of songs that he was told to prepare, including, to learn. And it was King of the Load, Gotta Get Out of Here and stuff. But it's unclear if they ever played them live. So then in September of '74, they go out and tour in the UK, opening for Man. Again, I've never seen a set list. I don't know how reputable this stuff on the library is. It's said that they played both of the medleys from the album in Just a Chance. So that's what was represented. Of all the live material, that's some of the most complex stuff to reproduce. So I'm kind of amazed those are the ones they picked. We also have the only single, we said Just a Chance and Gotta Get Out of Here was planned as a single by Warner Brothers. But the only one released was No One Knows in Japan, which we reviewed. As part of their contract, they were supposed to release 2 albums a year and 3 singles. And then Warner Brothers isn't even putting that out. They didn't put a single out. To wrap it up, I really would love to hear these songs live. I'm glad Joey is still playing them live, and there's a lot of good performances there. Tom Evans played Just a Chance live. I think there was a fondness that all of the members had for the music they produced. I think Chris Thomas has a fondness for it. Anybody who was there at Caribou Ranch knows that they were striving to make, and I think they did make, a magnum opus of just incredible music. That is it's a testament to the strength and the potential the band had, even if this was the last one that we got to hear. Commercially viable, but also musically complex. Let us know what you think, and thanks for watching.